Just to give you
Tell us
subject
when.
matter.
Very big. We're rolling. Okay.
Well, my mother was actually the force behind us surviving. She willed it. She always gave us hope, always dreaming. If we were hungry, she made a table by dreams, describing how it's going to be post-war. She also said, you're going to have so much food that you won't be able to eat. It was very interesting. She predicted everything that I'm going now through with the dieting and watching my weight. And in ghetto, she used to say, she described the table the way it used to be for the holidays.
Where were you?
I was in Lodge ghetto, and we entered the ghetto 1940.
But what was it like before?
How was it before? I remember Saturday, Friday night meals that friends used to come in, or yeshiva bookers. The table was very, very festive. And what I recollect is the lights. We used to put a big chandelier in the dining room, which never was lit. Okay.
Rolling?
Ghetto Lodge.
It was, before the war, we were lower middle class family. We used to we used to have for Friday night people coming in and very, very festive. The lights used to shine, it was a happy glow, and it was something very special for Shabbos.
When you went to the ghetto,
Yes.
what happened?
Well, I was less than 8 years old, and my mother supported the whole family morally. We sort of gave up hope after a while. There was hopelessness. What was there to be done? But mother always was there with the right word, with the right support, with hope that we're going to survive. No matter what, we're going to survive. If we said we were hungry, she used to dream up a table that we fell asleep with the dream of food. She also rationed us to that extent that the last day of the ration, people didn't have a bite to eat. We always had one bite of bread the last day. Next day, you got for a week allowance of bread. And she used to actually lock it behind a door, behind a box, and used to slice pieces for each of us and ration it in such a way that we had every day a bite of bread. If we didn't do it, we could not survive, because people ate the whole portion in one day and then starved for the last 6 days. So mother was, I feel, very instrumental in the 4 of us surviving.
Who were the 4?
My father, my brother, my mother, and I. We all came to America. And
you were the first to get into the ghetto and the last to leave the ghetto?
Yes.
How did that happen?
We lived on the other side of town in ghetto, which is away. We lived on the other side of Lodge, which is away from the ghetto. The old town became the ghetto. So they took the people from the furthest distance and put them into the ghetto. We went into the ghetto February 1st, 1940. We were 600 people left in the ghetto to clean up, and we were between them, the four of us, so that the ghetto was liberated in 1945, January 19th, 1945, and we were between the people that were liberated by the Russians.
How many years then you were in the ghetto?
5, a little shy 1 month, from 1940 till 45.
Where were you living? In what kind of apartment or room or house?
Well, we were in a very small room with my grandmother, my uncle, and my aunt. My aunt's husband ran to Russia in 1939. My uncle was an unmarried man, and we all lived in one room. We slept all in one bed. Uncle, aunt, and grandma had one bed, and the four of us had one bed, so that my parents slept in the middle and the children slept on the outside. We worked every single day.
Sonia,
Frania,
how did you get to the ghetto, the four of you?
how did we get there? My father marched in the march that was going into the ghetto. However, us, he sent ahead of time and said, we'll meet in the Gemeinde, in the place that we will get united. He didn't want us to march. He said, you go on the train, on the streetcar to the ghetto. And we met him there.
Why didn't he want you to march?
We supposed to march going into the ghettos through the town of Lodz. But he walked in the march and he said, you just take the streetcar and go, or walk by yourself.
And what about that march?
That march, what Dad told us afterwards, was horrendous. He arrived spitting blood. He could hardly catch his breath, and yet he was an army man. He served in the First World War. He was a very strong man. He was a short man, but very strong. When we arrived in the ghetto, people tried to get rooms, and we did get some food, but we didn't have to work. He insisted that he go to work. And he was digging ditches, doing all kinds of menial things. He said, I don't want any food for nothing. And because of that, he saved us, because the first transport that left the ghetto were people who didn't have a card that they are working, that they are workers. In ghetto, you had to be working, otherwise you couldn't survive. People that didn't work could not stay. Me being a very young child, he said, you older than you are, you go with mother to work. In 1942, I was 10 years old, and they closed the ghetto for a week. They went from house to house, cleaning it out. And this was a moment, not a moment, a week of hunger, mental anguish, because I was 10 and they used to take 10-year-old away and the old people. They only wanted working people. And my father saved me, and my mother gave me hope.
How did your father save you? He put you to work?
Yes, I already worked, but since we didn't know what's right, what's wrong, my father hid me in between grape wines, not grape wines, they were beanstalks. And he kept us there between the beanstalks. You couldn't see us. And about a minute before, he called me out and he said, stay and pick radishes or something. Just stay here. Within 1 minute, they shot the whole piece right through. Just machine gunned them through. So if he didn't instantaneously call me out, I wouldn't be around.
They shot who?
There's beans. You know, beans grow tall. They shot the beans through, and I was hidden between the beans.
But the bullets penetrate beans? Or...
Yes, but he called me out, and I was on the ground as a worker picking horseradishes, which was a little to the side.
Where was he?
About 10 feet away from me. And he said, don't get up, because if you stand up, they will know how young you are. So keep crouching that you're working. I also wore high heels, and towards the end, I pretended I am 15 years old, where I was 12.
Describe the room where you all lived. Could you go in and out freely? Did you hide in it?
Well, there was only one incident where I did had to hide. I hid in the rafters, curled up, because the Germans were coming. And they knew if they looked at me and talked to me, that I am too young to be working. What saved me is my height. I was tall for my age, and they always said she's undernourished. So that was another advantage for me. I always worked with my mother, so that if there was an inspection, several women made a circle around me, pretending we all worked together. She also not only did that, but she gave strength to other people. I felt my mother was a very strong person and always gave strength and help whoever needed help. At that time that I mentioned in 1942, my father brought home 4 potatoes. Out of the 4, she shared 2. She only kept 2 for us and went to 2 other neighbors to give them each a potato. One of these neighbors' children, a daughter, survived and is in the States. Lucky. When she met my brother, who didn't know my mother gave her parents the potato, she fell over him and she says, if it wouldn't be for that potato, I don't know if I would be around now. So my mother was really very, very supportive by giving, by a good word, always helping others.
It seems that one in the family, one saved the other.
Yes.
Other instances of saving?
Yes, there was. The last minute, when the ghetto was being cleaned out, which is in 1944, the ghetto was liquidated completely, except for the 600 people. Since my father had a job in such a way, he was a janitor, and he was able to stand that we should be able to be left between the 600 people. They put us to be shipped away. And my brother grabbed me by the hand, and my parents followed and stood up to the German officer. And he said, we are 4 willing people to work. Couldn't we stay? And he says, okay, you 4 can stay. Next day, he remembered And he remembered us and he says, where are the 4 people? And that time was another incident that I think I ought to mention. People that were being shipped out, I helped give water and whatever was necessary. They closed the doors on us.
When you were inside the wagon?
Inside the train that was going out of the station.
To Auschwitz?
Yes. I was giving water and helping people. They locked the doors. That this is it. The people inside the wagon said, you don't have to come with us. They eased me through a window. There was a window, a little window with gates. I don't know how they did it. And they pushed me across and said, you stay, you have a chance. Maybe tomorrow they'll ship you, but today you can still stay. And that's another incident that I feel was very significant.
Did you save anybody's life?
Did I save anybody's life? Indirectly, yes. My mother's. How? Before the Sperre, we called it a Sperre in 1942, my mother was hospitalized about 2 months before. And if you go to the hospital, you take your bread card with you. She stayed there, she was operated on, and if you left the card there, you got extra bread. So she said, oh, leave it there, leave it. And somehow I had a feeling. I said, no, let me get it out. And after work, I ran to the hospital, took the card out, and I say, you can work. That's okay. The extra bread we don't need. 2 days later, whoever card was at the hospital, people were taken out of their homes and being shipped out. I saw children being thrown out of second-story windows in the hospital. And women, children, just from the windows right into the truck.
How do you explain to yourself this sixth sense of everyone in the family to just do the right thing? Your father telling you to just get out?
Yes, I cannot explain it even to myself now. And I question it to this day. Why me? Why me? I was a child. I went in without education. I came out of ghetto, not knowing one letter from another, not reading, not writing. Why me?
Were you under some divine protection?
I do not believe in any divine protection. I'm sorry. I come from an Orthodox family, but I cannot believe that there's somebody there and could see all the atrocities that I have seen and say there's somebody there.
In the ghetto, you told us about hunger. Was there something that was encouraging, that was for a moment of life?
For me, not. I don't remember ever knowing a better life. I didn't recollect.
Did Jews get together at times to celebrate?
No, never, never. There was no such thing. The only time that we were together was a play they put on in the ghetto. And the play gave us hope. It was a musical dreaming about rolls with bread and butter and herring and all the delicacies that you can imagine. And the hope, they always said, there will be a time. There will be something there is something to look forward to.
If you don't believe in the divine protection, what do you believe?
Existence, presence, right now, living for the moment. I don't want to look at the past. I am hopeful of the future. But, however, I try to live every day the way it comes and to the fullest. And hopefully I do it.
What happened to that play? I must come back to that.
Well, the play was a satire and a hopeful thing.
The satire of?
A satire of our plight, of what we're going through. And it was performed only once. We weren't allowed to perform it again.
And you remember it so well as a little girl?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I cannot sing, but certain words come still to mind, you know. Some of it said, and it's horrible, on television, I don't even know if I should mention it, you're going to eat and it's going to cost so much that your bowel movement will be gold. In other words, you're going to consume so much that this is how they came out, and in Jewish it came out very nice.
And this was a Jewish group?
In Jewish language, and they put on a satire. They also satirized Rumkowski Haim, who was the eldester of the Jews. He was the president, I guess, of our community. They put a satire about him, how he organized the ghetto. I cannot sing it, but there is a song.
How do you account for your complete memory of this one performance when you were 10 years old?
I was younger than that. I must have been 9. I don't know. I recollect practically every day since I was a year old. And certain things come so vivid to my mind that I can describe rooms and people that I do know. And I checked it out with other people to make sure that certain stores or certain places were there. And they said yes, they were there.
Do you remember the end equally vividly?
Yes, very much so. The last week of our existence in ghetto, the Russian bombed 1 or 2 buildings, very few. And for next day they said, we have to all come down for lining up. They're going to take account. And some of the people said, this is it, this is the end. Hide wherever you can. My parents and I were hiding underneath the cemetery, the Jewish cemetery. There was a bunker, we were about 20 people together. And it was very, very drafty. We probably had enough food to maintain us for a couple of months, but the draft was so bad, and we stayed there for almost a week, that some of the younger people, not young, 20, 22-year-old ones, went out to get more covers, quilt covers and pillows. And as they went out, they saw the Russians have liberated our town. And this was 2 days after liberation.
Otherwise you would have stayed?
For about 2-3 months.
And not come out?
Not come out.
And there were graves there for you?
Yes, yes.
Can you say?
Well, the graves, They were big graves dug, and we knew those graves were for us, for the 600. There's supposed to be 100 to a grave. And the thing I recollect very vividly is a Russian coming up. When I came up I was the last one out of the bunker because a friend of mine couldn't walk, and I helped her up stair steps. And he cut my Jewish star, and he said, "You are free." I didn't even understand. What does he mean free? What am I doing here? And then my parents started celebrating, and they say, "We are free, the Russians are here." And it sort of caught on. However, there was another shock with us, with my mother, I guess, when she brought me a banana, which was about a month after liberation. I started eating it with the skin on, and she started crying because in our house we did have bananas before the war, and we did have oranges and watermelon. And when she gave me a piece of watermelon and I wanted to eat it with the skin, forget it, she just broke down. She realized then how much I have missed and have forgotten even how to eat. So that
it's too powerful to go on from there.